Hamilton has finally gotten what he's been publicly asking for since May. The FIA just handed Ferrari a massive engine concession, and it might be the single biggest turning point of their entire championship campaign. But why did Ferrari need this in the first place? Why did it take this long? And what does it actually mean for the second half of this title fight? Stick with me, because this story has been building for months, and it just reached its most important moment yet. Let's go back to where this all started, because Hamilton didn't just react to this news. He'd been campaigning for it for months. Back in early May, after the Miami Grand Prix, Hamilton said something that turned heads across the entire paddock. He openly called for Ferrari to be included in Formula One's looming engine balancing decision, and he didn't hold back on the reasoning. What we desperately need is an engine upgrade, because it's very tough for us right now to compete against the power of Red Bull and Mercedes, he said. Then came the line that really stood out. He called Ferrari's chassis perhaps the best car on the entire grid, insisting the only thing actually missing was the engine to match it. Think about how bold that statement really was. A 7-time world champion publicly declaring his own team might have built the best car in Formula One, while simultaneously admitting it couldn't compete on power. That's not a complaint. That's a driver who genuinely believed his team was one specific fix away from being unbeatable, and who was willing to say so publicly months before that fix ever arrived. So what exactly was Hamilton asking for? To understand that, you need to understand a piece of technical regulation that quietly became one of the most important storylines of the entire 2026 season, the FIA's Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities System, or ADUO for short. It was introduced specifically as a safety net for this brand new engine formula, designed to prevent any single manufacturer from running away with a permanent power advantage that rivals could never legally close. Under the regulations, if a manufacturer's internal combustion engine performance falls at least 2% behind the best performing power unit on the grid, they qualify for one additional homologation upgrade in 2026, plus one more the following year. But if that deficit is even steeper, at least 4% behind the benchmark, the concession doubles. 2 additional upgrades in 2026 and 2 more in 2027. Here's why that number matters so much for Ferrari specifically. Throughout the first half of this season, Hamilton was remarkably transparent about exactly how much performance Ferrari was losing purely to straight-line speed. He regularly said the team was giving up somewhere between 3 and 4/10 of a second per lap on the straights alone compared to Mercedes. In a sport where qualifying sessions are routinely decided by hundredths, a gap that size coming purely from horsepower rather than aerodynamics or chassis balance is enormous. It meant Ferrari's genuinely strong chassis was constantly fighting an uphill battle against a car that simply had more raw power available every time the road opened up. So when the FIA finally completed its review process, the results confirmed exactly what Hamilton had been arguing since May. Ferrari's power unit was found to be trailing the class-leading benchmark by more than 4%, putting them in the steepest deficit category the regulations allow for. Alongside fellow manufacturers Honda and grid newcomer Audi, Ferrari was awarded the maximum concession available under the entire ADUO framework: 2 additional engine homologations for 2026 and 2 more heading into 2027, along with extra dyno testing hours and additional budget allowances specifically to help close that gap. That's not a small technical footnote. That's the FIA officially confirming, through hard performance data, exactly the argument Hamilton had been making in public for months. Ferrari wasn't imagining a power deficit. It was real, it was significant, and now the sport's own regulatory body had handed them extra tools specifically designed to fix it. And Ferrari didn't waste any time putting that concession to work. The first of those extra upgrades arrived at the Austrian Grand Prix, a power unit development that provided a real, if modest, gain, estimated at around 7 additional horsepower. Not a dramatic leap on its own, but a genuine signal that the fix was actually underway rather than just theoretical. Then came the far bigger move. Ferrari confirmed their second major power unit upgrade of the season would land at Monza, the team's home race. timed specifically for the one circuit on the entire calendar where raw horsepower matters more than almost anywhere else. Reports out of Italy suggested this second package could roughly double the gain from Austria, adding somewhere in the region of 15 additional horsepower, worth an estimated 0.2 of a second per lap around Monza's long, high-speed straights. Hamilton himself has been candid about just how significant he expects that upgrade to be. Heading into the summer break, he pointed directly to the upcoming development cadence as the reason he expects the second half of the season to look dramatically different from the first. We haven't brought updates for 2.5 race weekends, but we have more coming soon. That is why I think the second half of the season will look very different, he said. That's not vague optimism. That's a driver who's been briefed on exactly what's coming and who's choosing his words carefully because he knows precisely how much performance is about to land in his car. Here's what makes the timing of all this so significant when you place it against the championship picture. Heading into the summer break, Hamilton sat second in the World Drivers' Championship, 50 points behind runaway leader Kimi Antonelli of Mercedes, with Ferrari as a constructor 50 points off Mercedes' pace as well. That's a real gap, but far from insurmountable with more than half the season still remaining. And crucially, this engine boost isn't happening in isolation. Ferrari has also been introducing a steady stream of aerodynamic upgrades throughout the year, including a revised floor debuted at the Dutch Grand Prix, specifically designed to increase downforce and widen the SF26's operating window across different circuit types. Combine a genuinely competitive, still improving chassis with a power unit that's finally being allowed to close its gap to the front, and you have the exact formula Hamilton described back in May. A great car finally getting the engine to match it. There's also a fascinating subplot buried inside this story that reveals just how seriously Ferrari is treating the opportunity. Reports indicate the team plans to actually revert Hamilton and Leclerc's engines back to an older specification for the Singapore Grand Prix, a street circuit where raw horsepower matters far less than everywhere else on the calendar. The logic behind that decision tells you everything about how precious this new power unit upgrade is considered internally. Ferrari wants to protect and preserve their most powerful specification, specifically for the circuits later in the season, where Hamilton and Leclerc will need every ounce of that extra power to fight Mercedes head-on, rather than risking wear and reliability on a track where it wouldn't make much difference anyway. Now, it's worth being clear about something here because not everyone in the paddock celebrated this decision. The ADUO system itself has been genuinely controversial since it was first proposed. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff was notably opposed to the entire framework, reportedly arguing that only Honda, among the newer or more clearly disadvantaged manufacturers, should have qualified for these kinds of concessions. From Mercedes's perspective, handing extra development opportunities to a direct championship rival in the middle of an active title fight understandably looks like the sport handing an advantage to the team chasing them down. That tension is real, and it's worth remembering as this story develops. Not everyone views Ferrari's engine boost as a fair correction. Some see it as a regulatory intervention that could end up deciding a championship that should have been settled purely on track. So here's the real question at the center of this entire story. Is this engine concession simply the sport correcting a genuine, measurable imbalance in a brand new set of regulations still finding their footing in year one? Or does it represent exactly the kind of outside interference that title challengers like Mercedes have every right to be frustrated about? An artificial leg up arriving at the precise moment it could tip a genuinely close championship fight. And most importantly for Ferrari fans specifically, if Hamilton's own prediction is right, and the combination of this power boost with Ferrari's continuing aerodynamic development really does make the second half of the season look very different. Could this be the exact moment historians look back on as the turning point of Lewis Hamilton's pursuit of an 8th world title? Nobody can answer that with full certainty yet. Championships aren't decided by a single regulatory decision in August. They're decided race by race over the following months under real pressure against rivals who aren't standing still either. But what we do know right now is this. Lewis Hamilton stood in front of cameras back in May and said, in plain terms, exactly what Ferrari needed to become genuinely unbeatable. Months later, the FIA's own data confirmed he was right and handed his team the maximum concession available to fix it. Whether that turns into a championship by December is still completely unwritten. But the gap Hamilton complained about all season just got a very real, very official green light to start closing. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think this engine boost is exactly what Ferrari needed to genuinely fight for the title? Or do you think it's an unfair intervention that could hand Hamilton an advantage he didn't earn purely on track? Drop your take in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to know exactly where you stand as this championship enters its most important stretch. And if this breakdown helped you understand exactly why this engine news matters so much, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we'll be tracking every upgrade, every race weekend, and every twist of this title fight as it unfolds all the way to December. Drop a like if you think Hamilton and Ferrari can turn this into a genuine championship run. Share this with another F1 fan who needs the full story, and I'll see you in the next one.